Coming up next on Walking with Dad.
My father really is my best friend, at these days. Well, if I'm not including my wife. But as far as a male, my father is my best friend. At a young age, some things I didn't understand, and I did feel like, he was a little hard on me. But he did instill some things in me very early. And as I've grown to become an adult, I have really grown to appreciate, the path that he did take me down.
And welcome back to this week's episode of Walking with Dad, where we get the chance to sit down with all kinds of dads and fathers to get their perspective and their insight on the importance and the significance of being present within their kids' life and within the family altogether. Here we celebrate Father's Day every single day instead of just the calendar day once a year. And on this week's episode, I have a special guest with us here at Walking with Dad. This gentleman, I actually met him, I wanted to say recently, still recently within the past year or so, but at a networking event, a local networking event that a mutual friend of ours had put in place. And of course, we had initially met there, stayed in contact, and I've gotten a chance to get to know just a little bit about this gentleman. He is married. He is a father of 2 children. And he, being open and just honest with me, he's admitted that even at the age that he is still able to admit that he is still working on learning exactly what it is that he wants out of life. So without further ado, to introduce to some and to present to others, I have with us today, Mr. Derek Haywood. Derek, man, how we doing today, man?
Doing great. How you doing today?
Man, I cannot complain, man. It's great to see you, man. It's actually been a little bit of a minute.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
For sure, man. Well, hey, man, I get right into it, man. If you can let the Walking with Dad community audience just get to know a little bit about you, man. Tell us just a little bit about yourself.
I'm 36 years old, married. I've been married now for 7 years. Me and my wife have actually been together since 2007. I do have 2 children. I have a 17-year-old daughter. 16, soon to be 17, coming up here. And I have an 11-year-old son that will be turning 12 here in August.
Okay. All right, cool, man. So they are not the under the age of 10-year-old children anymore. So how is that for you nowadays? Like, they are one teenager, one soon to be teenager. How is that journey for you?
So to give a little bit more context, my son is 11, will be turning 12. He actually lives here with me, has lived here with me his entire life.
Okay.
My daughter, she actually lives in Charlotte with her mother. She moved there when she was about 3 years old. So she's been having to, the journey's been interesting. I have one child that's a little bit distant, as far as the actual distance, should I say. And then with my son being here, it's just a different dynamic having one here and having one away.
Okay, cool, man. So yeah, we'll get into that. I want to actually build up to that, but I appreciate that. We were talking and you had mentioned something along the lines of, even at your age that you're at right now, mid-30s, mid to almost late 30s, almost 40, that you feel that you're like maybe a bigger kid that's teaching, younger kids as far as your children. Explain what you mean by that.
It just, it's kind of like when I kind of break down generations. Being 36 myself, until I had children and my children reached a certain age, I really didn't realize certain things as far as my parents, like maybe some of the things that, they taught me, or some of the things they didn't know to teach me. Once I reached a certain age, I realized that we're always still learning, so I guess from that aspect, I still feel somewhat like a child constantly, because there's always still things to learn and lessons to learn. And just like a child, a child is supposed to learn things and learn from life lessons and then pivot and, go in another direction, to keep progressing. So from that aspect, I still kind of feel like a kid. I'm still learning every day, and I'm still excited to teach, my children, because they should be learning every day as well.
For sure, man. I appreciate that, man. So If we could go ahead and just like, backtrack with you and for us today. Tell us about your childhood. Like, were both of your parents in the picture? Was it just your mother, just your father? Tell us a little bit about that, man.
So I grew up with both parents in the household. Um, my parents both were military. They met in the Navy. Um, so my childhood started off with me being born in Annapolis, Maryland. From there, we moved to Japan when I was probably about 2 or 3 years old. So that was in Okinawa, Japan. And then from there, we moved to Hawaii. So I spent about 3 to 4 years in Hawaii. And then we came back over here on the mainland. And we went down to Georgia for about a year. And then I came here to Virginia, and I've been here since about 96 or 97. So that was my childhood, just moving around, man, having to make friends, and here we are.
Oh man, well, definitely thank you to both mom and dad for their service in the military and the Navy, to be specific. Because of that, you never thought of wanting to follow their footsteps and go into the military yourself?
I actually did. I actually did. So I graduated at 17 years old. Funny story, quick one actually. So, a bit indecisive back then. So me and my father had that conversation quite a bit about me wanting to go. And I'd already took the ASVAB, and I was kind of dragging my feet, didn't want to go to college, right after school, was kind of tired of school. And so I fell asleep in the car one day, riding with my dad, and I woke up, and we woke up in front of the recruiting station. He said, man, just go in there and talk to him. So I actually did. I did join the military. I took the summer off, and I went a month after my birthday. Turned 18 September 7th, and I was gone by October 5th. I was gone to boot camp.
Man, so how long were you in?
I actually only did it. I did about a total of 16 months, man. I got medically discharged. I went in and got hurt, and I wasn't able to fulfill my duties. So they sent me back home.
Wow, man. So I gotta ask, just as a always civilian, still a civilian, even after 16 months, are you in a position that the military still gives you medically discharge pay or no?
Yes, 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 absolutely.
Wow.
Because whenever you do experience those types of things in the service, they do hold up their end of the bargain there, and they do make sure they take care of their veterans. Once you do leave.
Wow. 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 Well,
Yeah,
thank you for your service too, man. Even with
thank you.
16 months, man. Yeah, I can imagine that probably was not what you would have expected as far as that shorter tenure, but nonetheless, you
Oh,
did what you did, man. So thank you
yeah.
for your service, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Now, are mom and dad still together, or talk to us about that a little bit?
Mom and dad are still together. They live here, right here in Virginia. They're probably about 25 minutes away from me. So I have an older sister. She actually just turned 38. So mom and dad have actually been together for 38 years.
Nice, man. Nice.
Yeah.
So you are fortunate, just like myself, mom and dad in the picture, mom and dad still together. Um, how was and how has your life been and your journey in life been with having your dad in the picture, and specifically different things that he's been able to teach you and show you as far as his presence being in your life throughout your lifetime?
A tremendous impact. My father really is my best friend, at these days. Well, if I'm not including my wife, but my father, as far as a male, my father is my best friend. At a young age, some things I didn't understand, and I did feel like, he was a little hard on me, but he did instill some things in me very early. And as I've grown to become an adult, I have really grown to appreciate, the path that he did take me down. I had, a couple of stumbling blocks, when I was a young man, and he did have to correct or redirect me, and I'm just very thankful that he was there and he is still here for me to be able to turn to.
Cool, cool, man. So, what would you say has been a something or anything that your dad has taught you that you've been able to, of course, take throughout your life, and of course, with you also having a son yourself, that you've learned and then you've also been able to teach?
The first thing that comes to mind very early on was my father told me a story about how his father used to give him and his sisters allowance. And at a very young age, he said, I want to say around 10 years old or so, his father told him that he wasn't getting an allowance that day. He was a young man and that he needed to go and earn money. So my father picked up a paper route very early, and that was sometimes the money that was there to actually feed the family. His father got sick and came out of work, and he had to, step up, and not only that, he had to provide things for himself as well. So he instilled that into me very early as well. He allowed me to use his lawnmower, and he allowed me to use his water hose and his buckets and things like that. And he just instilled in me very early that he was here to supply my needs and some of my wants, but some things that I wanted, I would have to go out, and actually earn wages to be able to afford those things for myself. So that is something that I have passed on to my son. That you are a young man, and that if a man don't work, you don't eat. You're going to have to get out there and earn it.
So with your dad having basically learned that around 10 or so from what you're mentioning, and your son now being at around that age, 11, almost 12, I don't want to say that that is extreme as far as how early that was, but with this day and age, 2024, of course, compared to however long ago that was, would you say that you might very well go as hard in the paint as far as teaching such of a principle like that to your son as what your dad learned?
I have, my son is he's very mature for his age. He's also he's very ambitious for his age. He desires, he does desire material things like most kids. And, mommy and daddy tell him, hey, you keep getting them straight A's at school, A's and B's, and doing everything we're asking you to do, your responsibilities at home, and we'll continue to do our part, but we do want you to understand the value of a dollar as well. So I really do go kind of hard, in that department. The only thing I've really added on to that is looking at it from a perspective of maybe not necessarily working. You might want to become a boss, and what to do with your money. You may want to invest that money. And those are conversations that, me and my father maybe didn't have because he was unaware, of those things back then. So that is something that I've added.
For sure, man. We'll get into that as well, because it's a different mentality. We don't do a lot of finger pointing or blame when it comes to that. As you had touched on, and as we both know, it's a lot more of the awareness and having that access to such things as far as entrepreneurship, business ownership, having something of your own. But like I said, we'll get into that, man.
Yes, sir.
How often would you say nowadays, or even coming up, because you had touched on some things that, dad had to teach you and correct you with, how often do you happen to get the chance, or make time rather, to even have time with your dad nowadays, being older, but like I said, even as you were coming up?
We honestly, we're a lot closer now. I mean, we talk every day. We talk every day. We talk about something every day, but we definitely talk every day. My dad's he's early 60s, and I'm just very fortunate to still have both of my parents here. So I make it a point to really try to stay in contact with them as much as possible.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So he's granddad. You're a father of a son, but then also you have your daughter. So tell us a little bit about, as you had mentioned, you have a daughter, but she's also distant. So fill us in about what that's taught you, and also with being a girl dad as well.
That has been man, that's been something that has honestly been a struggle for me, from her very young age, just being away. I don't think I understood the dynamic of, maybe taking steps that may have prevented her being away from me. Maybe being married before having a child, and that doesn't guarantee that things will work out, but it has been interesting with her being away. I don't get to be as hands-on or as active, every day, in those teachable moments when I have that moment to just, it's a Tuesday at 5 p.m. and I can teach you something in that moment, that you maybe should have done a little differently, but no, man, it's just been, it has been great though, having her, like, it's the way you raise a daughter is definitely not the way you raise a son. it's just so different. It is so different.
Mhm. So I have a two-part question with that. How would you say that your relationship with your daughter is now because of that distance ever since I think how you mentioned like she was like way younger, like maybe 3 it was?
Right.
Okay. And then also, how would you say that your relationship is with her mother because of that distance?
I'm with her mother. Everything is great.
Mhm.
I can call her mom, pick up the phone right now. We'll talk for an hour just about anything. Like her mom. It's been a very great relationship, co-parenting. Even between my wife and my daughter's mom is actually now married too. Me and my wife and my son, we were all in the wedding. I was a groomsman. My wife, she was there. She was a hostess. My son was the ring security. So it's we're a very cohesive unit.
Okay.
I mean, my relationship with my daughter, just a trial and error, just trying different ways, and um, I realized that I was forcing it. I was pushing a little too hard for what I wanted, and I wasn't necessarily taking into account for what she wanted as much as I should have. I was just maybe being selfish of wanting more from her than she was able to give me in that time. But so we're at a place now where I'm letting it be a lot more organic, and it seems to be working way better than it was before. I think she feels like I'm not coming at her as much anymore. Like I'm here. I am here.
Okay. Okay. So if it could probably be paraphrased a little bit, if you were to see things from how she would be able to speak about you, would you say that any walls that she might have had up before, um, they could still be up, but they're not up as much, or they might not be up at all?
Correct. I think that I have friends that have teenagers as well. So we all talk, about our kids and behaviors and maybe just experiences with our children, and some things, because I'm not there to see it physically day to day, that may be alarming to me. It's just as normal everyday stuff. I just never experienced it because I've never had a 15 or 16-year-old girl before. So it's been interesting.
All right, cool. So I was reading a devotional just recently, and it spoke of how with a lot of relationships, but also honing into marriages, that one of the main issues that comes about is basically communication, obviously, but how a lot of the issues that have come about that lead to separation or divorce maybe is the fact of just basically being rude. One's rudeness toward each other, a spouse toward another spouse, or even like how I said, relationships one toward another. What would you say is probably a main thing for you, having been married now for as long as you said, I think that was 7 years, or you're about to be 7 years?
7 years, correct.
What would you say is something that keeps you in check to not allow yourself to be rude toward your wife and then also the mother of your child?
Number one is just respect. I was raised to respect women and to respect children. So I know my children are always watching, and communication is one of the biggest pieces that I think me and my wife have worked extremely hard on, over the years, to make sure that we are showing the children effective communication. If there's conflict, we have grown to not allow conflicts to escalate in front of the children. If we do have a disagreement, and if we have wronged each other, we have grown to a point where we also have come to where we can apologize, in front of the children. That way they can see conflict resolution as well.
Okay, man. That's powerful, man. On the other end of the spectrum, because of you being married and because of, if anything, having your son around on a regular basis, and then your daughter as often as it may very well be, are you a fan rather of the PDA in front of your child or in front
Absolutely.
of your children?
Absolutely. Now, we don't take it too far, but I do want my children to see affection. I want my son to see how I believe you should love a woman. PDA, we hold hands, we do kiss. it's my house. I'm gonna slap your mom's butt when she walks by. Now, he's getting a little older now, so I've tamed it down some because he is older. He's in middle school. My daughter as well. When she's here, I get her every summer or holidays. She's here as well. I want her to see, how a man should love a woman as well. Opening doors and just catering to a woman as well. I might fix your mom's plate. I might cook, or you see me doing chores or cleaning and things as well, because I want them to see that it's a unit. There may be some roles and that may work for some people, but for us, I want them to see that we're a team, we're a unit.
Got you, man. And I've usually thrown this question out to various dads more so for the sake of being a father of a daughter, but I'll throw this out in this instance of being a father of a son. How high of a bar, if any, do you feel that you've set for your son growing up to be a man when it comes to responsibilities or even chivalry as it is?
He's shown me, that he's been watching and that he's been learning and he's been listening. He will open his mom's car door for her. He's on that side of the car. He'll hold the door for her. Any other woman he sees coming, he'll hold the door for as they're coming. That was the chivalry side. I missed that first part.
As far as like responsibilities are concerned.
Okay. Responsibility. I explained to him, when he's in fifth grade, once he reached double digits, that, you have some responsibilities, but, I'm going to put more on you because, as you grow older, you're only going to have more responsibilities. So if you start now at an early age, you have those experiences of, becoming overwhelming. And then, what comes with that is emotion, and then how to manage those emotions. I'm like, the earlier you start, the more practice you get, the better you'll be at it when it's time for you to, walk alone or for you to raise your son as well.
That's good. That's good. So I had a question that I just forgot, but it's all good. We had touched on the entrepreneurship portion. And I know that I can say whatever I would want to say about it, but as far as what you know, what you've learned, and what you want to teach your children, why would you say that that's so important nowadays?
Just to be in control of your own destiny, as much as possible. It's nothing wrong with working the 9 to 5 to probably get you to where you can generate your own income. And even at that time, if you keep your 9 to 5, because you do want to have, more than one stream of income. So I do want them to see both sides of it like I have. I've been everything from a janitor to a manager. And that's kind of what's propelled me to want to pursue entrepreneurship at this point. Looking at the economy and just looking at everything that's going on. I want them to be in a position to where they can have something that's theirs, something that may create generational wealth for them and their children maybe. But I'm at a point where I know I need to set the example so they can see it firsthand.
Okay. So you might not necessarily have it in place just yet for yourself, but that's something that you're working on as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Gotcha. And even as a stream of income, why would you personally, for yourself, say that that's important to pursue the entrepreneurship route?
Because as I've come to understand, there's just a lot of things that go into it, and you need to understand who you are, and maybe your risk appetite is extremely important. You need to understand what risk you're willing to take. And some people do require a certain amount of security, and having a 9 to 5 may provide that security for you, and until you reach a point where you trust yourself enough, or you have enough faith in yourself or into a higher being to step out there and say, what do I have to lose? And just try it. You have one life to live. The earlier you start, the earlier you fail, the earlier you learn, and the earlier you're able to progress and change.
Gotcha. I just wanted to sit on that for a little bit. Yeah, man. Ultimately, if you were able to look back into your life, because this came up before when I got a chance to speak with the father, what made you decide that you wanted to be a father? And I'll place it to you this way, especially in this day and age, nowadays, recently 2024, whatever the case might be. But you had the choice to maybe not be present in your children's life, to maybe not follow through altogether. but you've made that decision to actually want to go through with it and to also be present. So what for you personally made you want to decide to want to be a father?
Looking at my community and knowing that I've seen some people turn out, they may have turned out a little different if they had, that presence, around them. And that's just words from their mouth. And just me knowing what's out here for these children if they don't have the guidance and somebody to prepare them. And then just responsibility, as a man. Like I watched my father do it. I watched the TV dads do it. I watched Bill Cosby. Well, that's another topic. But I watched black men raise successful black children, to go out here in the community. And so I just think it's very important to be a presence in your children's life.
Mm. So, and with that, for you personally, how much of a dynamic do you think that it's been for you that you did and you do have dad in your life?
He's to this day, we talk every day. I still turn to my father for guidance in certain situations, because he's been here before. Like I said, I have an older sister, so he's done it as well. He's had a boy and he's had a girl, and my father was, he was able to become successful and able to retire. And, I've watched him do it. So I just being able to turn to him for the guidance has also been a tremendous help. He's a person that I respect. So his opinion and his insight means a lot to me.
Mm. I like how you use the word respect, because I was thinking about it recently that a child, even, in the age of the both of us, like mid-30s or so, could very well have a parent present and still not respect them. And so even with you as a parent, why do you feel that respect aspect is as big as it is?
Trust. That also plays a part. If you don't respect someone, it's hard for them you to trust, where they're leading you. Mm-hmm. Even as an adult, sometimes we struggle with our emotions. And if we have trust or faith in something, it's a lot easier to follow that, in the midst of adversity or just when it seems like you're in a storm and everything's negative. If you have something to guide you that you truly believe in, then I just don't see, I feel like you're going to be open to receive everything positive that you're supposed to have. And you're the experience that you're going to have, it will have a better outcome if you can trust what you're following. So you have to respect that. You have to respect whatever it is that you're following.
Yes. With that too, I don't want to neglect her because you've mentioned her. She's been brought up. How are things with you and your mother?
Great. I talk to my mom every day, or I try to every day. If she's still mom. Now, if I don't, if it's been too many days, I'm in trouble. Like I said, she's only 25 minutes away, so I try to make it a point to stop by as often as well. And like I said, at the age of 36, I have people around me that don't have their parents, here present, or they're in the midst of maybe losing a parent. And I just know time is not guaranteed to us. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So I really try to make the best of every day with that. So mom, we talk every day. Growing up, I was really a mama's boy growing up, man. I love my mama. I love my mama, so we still there. I still love my mama to death, man.
So let me ask you this too, because of course this is called Walking with Dad, and we talk with dads and fathers, and we get that perspective and insight and all that good stuff. But because of you having mom and dad and having had mom and dad, how much of a difference do you feel or even know that has made for you in your life because of that?
It translated into my marriage. I found a woman that was very much like my mother, very nurturing. With my father being in the military, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. You may go on deployments, and maybe I didn't understand at the time when I was younger. When you're a kid, your dad's gone for 6 months. It seems like he's gone for 6 years. So my mother did step into that role. Me and my sister were very active in cheerleading, football, and mom made all the practices. Mom was on the PTA. She was very active, and instrumental in how she was raising us into the people that she wanted us to be, you know. So very hands-on, you know. Mom did not believe in sparing the rod and spoiling the child, you know. So yes, I didn't like it at the time, but I'm extremely grateful for it. You know, it brought me to where I am today.
I was gonna say I was gonna tread lightly, but it's nothing new, and it's been brought up before, so I'm not gonna shy away from it. Why did you know, or even why can you say, or why do you feel that that form of discipline is as important and vital, just altogether, not even just for you, but why do you feel or know that that form of discipline is important?
Well, it's funny you asked this. Me and my children, you know, have had this conversation. I don't believe in beatings. Absolutely not. I've explained to my children, because I've come to learn studying, you know, psychology on my own a little bit, and understanding that their brains develop and they're supposed to do certain things at certain, you know, points in life when they reach certain milestones. And just having that understanding that they may know right from wrong, but their brain may be telling them to do certain things and they don't even understand why they're doing it. And I know sometimes that type of punishment is issued from parents when we're tired or we're exhausted from talking, and we're saying the same things over and over and over again. But if we really think about it as a parent, that's what our job is repetition, repeating things. Your children are to hopefully learn from their mistakes and be able to pivot and not make that same mistake. So, you know, if we've talked about something and I've given you the opportunity to change, sometimes we may reach a point where, to help you, you know, remember, to me, it's no secret that, you know, pain does help you, you know, remember things. So I'm very careful in the trauma that I issue my children and the way that I issue it to them, because I know trauma will, you know, signal certain memories, and maybe they'll remember, hey, dad said, don't do that. Dad said, don't do that. I learned, you know, he gave me the opportunity to learn a couple times, and, you know, it might be like baseball, you know, three strikes, you're out, you know, so.
Yeah. And with that brought up something else that I would like to ask. Sometimes it's more so the child's perspective from the parent, but from the parent's perspective toward the child, and for you, personal perspective. What is a thing or some things that, as a parent, through the progression of, you know, pregnancy, 1 to 10, and then, you know, for you, both teenage years. I mean, I can't ask you of a full grown child because you're not there yet, but now from birth to teenage years, that a parent should be aware of and should learn.
You have to understand. Well, something as simple as me taking my children and telling them, hey, I asked my daughter, how old are you? I asked my son how old he was. I said, now, how old am I? You all are my first children. This is my first time doing this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing my best. You know, I'm doing what I've seen. Now I'm doing what I think is the best thing to do to raise you to be, you know, the person that I want you to be when you grow up, you know. So apologizing to your children when you know that you're wrong. I will apologize. I have apologized. Giving your children the opportunity to respectfully be able to come to you and tell you what you can do better. I've asked, hey, how do you feel like I'm doing? What do you think I could be doing better? What is it that I'm doing that you feel like could be done better? Let's just have open communication and let's talk, but let's keep it respectful. So, you know, as a parent, you're constantly learning from each other. You know, I just really believe that you can learn anything from anybody, whether they're 8 or 80 years old. So just be open to listen, and just make sure you listen. You know, please make sure that you listen and watch, you know, just watching what your children are doing. Learn your children, find out what it is that they respond to well. Try to make sure you're praising them just as much as you are, you know, disciplining your children. It's not always about discipline. It's about, you know, making sure that they are, as I tell my children, I want to make sure that you are good, you know, mentally, physically, and spiritually as well. You know, you have to tend to all of those things.
That was powerful, man. Right off the top of your head, is there anything that comes to mind that you are still in the midst of wanting to teach to your children?
It's overwhelming, the amount of things I want to teach to my children, you know. just being an adult, and like I said, me still learning. I'm learning something new every day. That was something my dad was extremely big on. If you haven't learned something new today, you wasted a day. So I tell my children the same thing. You should be learning something new every day. I lost that one again.
Well, is there anything specific, like any one main thing of the overwhelming amount of things that come to mind, or obviously that you're still going through dealing with that you're in the midst of teaching to your children?
Emotional awareness, like I said, just psychology, like learning to master yourself and learning to master your emotions. To me, at the end of the day, it's just important. You're taking care of yourself, like I said, physically, taking care of yourself mentally and spiritually. Um, if it's been a rough week at school and you need a day, I'm an adult. Sometimes I take a day from work. I understand that, but let's just keep open communication and talk about those things. So just being able to be self-aware and take care of yourself in all aspects, whether that be, like you said, financial or whatever it is. There's so many things to teach, but that is really the main one. Is I want them to understand how to master themselves and take care of themselves.
With your daughter being around 17, from what you mentioned, is she driving already?
So she's in a progression of getting her license. So she has her permit. She has a bit of fear of getting on the interstate with the cars moving a little faster, but it's something, like I told her, with repetition and experience, you will overcome that fear. So not as often as she wants to answer your question.
I mean, I get it. I was just going somewhere with an instance of what occurred, and I was speaking with some of my coworkers about it because just recently there was a fatality on one of our bridges out here, obviously, that I think it was just a matter of impatience. I don't want to try to call it anything else from what the articles were saying, but I think it was just a matter of impatience, and a person lost their life in their vehicle due to a lane change and ended up in the water. And I'm not trying to bring that over your daughter. I'm just trying to make a point here as far as like you were talking about the communication and learning to just control those emotions that even relative to being on the road, how vital it is. Like, how my dad taught me that if you happen to have something that's on your mind or that you're going through and that you're dealing with, and you're about to get behind the wheel of the car, that you need to basically come to grips with that thing soon and very soon, basically. Because if you take that thing behind the wheel, it's, you're talking about a multiple ton vehicle that you are behind the wheel of, and that emotion is then going to take control of that vehicle to the next person or wherever that destination is. So that's very major. I was, like I said, wanting to make a point of that. I didn't want to bring or speak anything over your daughter, and just now learn how to drive or anything, man. But would you say that there are any other TV or movie dads that stand out to you that have been an example along the way, a good example along the way?
Right off the top of my head, John Q. Will Smith, in The Pursuit of Happiness. Those are the first two that pops in my head, and those are the first two. And then Taken, the father that had to go find his child. Those things pop in my head.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it at the characters and not the individuals, because that could just go into a totally different direction that
Absolutely,
we don't have time for today. But if there is, I like to paint this picture as I ask this question typically. For your children being once again between 10 and 20 right now, but say they get a chance to come back to this episode, watch their dad speaking 10, 20 years from now, and can use this episode as a video, audio time capsule, so to say. What is something that you would want to leave with your children? Words of wisdom, something of that nature.
Ooh, I love you. That's number one. The two of you, I want you all to honestly take inventory of yourselves every day and make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Okay. Keep God first. That is a path that has led me to where I am. It's something that I've been able to lean on in a time of need. It's absolutely been there for me in times where I was in a very dark place. You're going to have ups and downs in life. Just be patient with the process. Life is all about learning. Don't be afraid to fail. If you fail, learn. It's not, you didn't lose anything. It was simply just a lesson that you needed to learn, and take it and learn from it. There's so much that I do want to say, but there's just love yourself. Always take care of yourself first. Just remember to breathe. Breathe. You cut off the oxygen to the body, and there's so much that I want to say. Honestly, there's so much that I want to say. Man, there's so much to tell you, but just when life becomes hectic and things seem like they are not going to go your way, just keep faith and keep going. Keep going. It is hard out here as an adult, but you just have to keep going. Keep going. Man, I could really do this for about an hour, and there's so many days. There's so many subjects that I really want to just talk to my children about, man. But you're going to be great. Just continue to be who you are, and everything will be fine. Everything will be fine.
Yeah, man. The floor is yours, man. So I didn't want to interject, man, because it was your time to say what you needed to say, man. Is there anything else altogether that you would say that from your experience and your experiences that you would like to share with us today?
Just your past does not have to be who you are. It does help shape who you become in the future. You use those experience to elevate yourself to the next level. For a young woman, just remember to always respect yourself. For my daughter, definitely, absolutely, please respect yourself always. Always put yourself first before anyone in a relationship. Now when it comes to your children, then that's a whole nother story. You'll realize once you have your own children what I mean by that. And for a young man, my son, just be a leader. For my daughter as well, be a leader. You don't have to follow the crowd. Just be you. You are enough. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. You're exactly who God intends you to be. And if you continue to go down that path and let him lead you, you will end up exactly where you're supposed to be. Right. Remember, comparison is the thief of joy. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Everything that you were supposed to have, you will have. And you will have it in abundance if you continue to just follow where you're supposed to go.
Most definitely, man. And for our dads, our fathers, one that has no children right as of right now, but is considering wanting to be a father, the marital route, maybe even out of wedlock, or our fathers who are already fathers who might be going through and dealing with different things. It's become a little bit tough for them. What is something that you today would like to share and leave with our fathers and our dads today, man?
For the fathers and dads, something that has been instrumental in my life. Do not be afraid to get help. Whether it be a pastor, spiritual leader, whether it be another man that has done this before, and you've seen him and you've seen how his children have turned out. If that man was instrumental in that child's life, ask some questions. It's a community. At the end of the day, it takes a village to do this. Therapy, huge. Do not be afraid to speak with a therapist. Don't be afraid to be in touch with your emotions, because that's going to help you grow as a man. There's nothing greater than being a father here on this earth, man. Like these are the two single best things that have ever happened to me. Just knowing that what you're sowing, what it's going to mature into if you continue to nurture it, and seeing what it blossoms into, most beautiful thing in the world. Most beautiful thing in the world. We're not always there. It's not always about the financial side of things. If you're falling short financially, find a way. You're going to find a way. You're going to make a way. You're going to make a way. It's not always going to be easy, but you're going to make a way. But it's not always about the finances. You have to be there for them like I said, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. And you have to start with yourself. You have to make sure that you're there as well. You have to be able to follow before you can lead. So until you can, be disciplined enough, to actually take all the steps that all those hard things that you don't want to do, you have to do those things to become the man that you're supposed to be so that you can raise those children the way that you intend to.
Man, that's good enough for me. And I hope that it's good enough for all of us here today, man. Anything else that comes to mind? I don't want to cut you off or nothing.
No, man. I'm sitting here in front of my bookshelf. So this is something else that I'm leaving my kids as I want to pass down all these books that I have here. Just I guess I can do this forever, man. Like I just want everybody to keep learning. It's always going to be something else to learn. Just keep learning, and keep improving.
Is there a particular book of what you're reading right now, or just one that stands out, or a lesson from a particular book that stands out most to you?
Oof. My mother gave me a book, and that book itself was it got me to a point where the book basically talks about your destiny and becoming who you are, and then my father gave me a book. It was Your Erroneous Zones. And that one's big on talking about dealing with your emotions, being self-aware. When probably about 2 years ago, he told me it changed his life. He thought it saved his life. So I bought it and I read it. And that is something that has definitely changed my life. It has changed my life just on quest for knowledge constantly. That has changed my life.
Good stuff, man. Well, hey, man, I most definitely, and we most definitely appreciate your time today, everything that you shared, the reminder for us to continuously be learning and to be growing from what it is that we learn, man. Most definitely appreciate you today. I appreciate you all here at Walking with Dad, and with you tuning into this episode today. Derek, is there any kind of social media handles for you, or ways that people can reach out to you, keep in contact, if anything?
I'm only on Facebook, just Derek Haywood, and you'll see my face. You'll see me looking off the side of a boat that was in the Bahamas, and you'll see a picture of my kids and my wife and I, at the wedding, and that'll be my cover photo. Just the family.
Got you. Okay, cool. Well, that's pretty much everything for us today here with this episode of Walking with Dad. If you feel that you gained some value, please feel free to leave a comment and share it with somebody else who is in need of this vital information. Please also definitely consider subscribing to the page and give us a like on today's episode. Derek, once again, I appreciate you today. Walking with Dad. Until next time, it's been a wonderful experience, and I will see you on the next episode.